man that has a very significant story. He has ties back to Butler Island, is Lecutred Crawford. Lecutred Crawford was a carpenter by trade. He was uneducated, although he did teach himself to read and write by the light of the heart pine pitch. So you can imagine after a long day, he's going back, lighting up a fire and teaching himself to read and write. In his lifetime, he will serve as Justice of the Peace in Darien. In 1872, he's the mayor pro tem of Darien. And eventually, he becomes an AME minister at the AME church there in Darien. He serves as a chairman for the McIntosh County Republicans in 1888 to 1890. During his lifetime, he would be elected to represent McIntosh County 3 different times in the Georgia State Legislature. In 1886 to 1888, his most significant contribution to Georgia was the sponsoring of a bill for disabled veterans. He got on the floor as one of only 2 Black legislators during that term. He took the floor and said to his fellow legislators, "The United States government has pensioned her soldiers, both white and black, who have fought for her in the late war. I do not see why Georgia should not pension her wounded veterans, although I am very well aware that my race will not get $1 of pension money." He then is again elected to serve from 1890 to 1892. And he's on the Labor and Statistics Committee, the Education Committee as well. He was also part of the Penitentiary Committee, and he was noted for being the only member of the legislature to get on the floor and actually speak in opposition to the reinstatement of whipping posts for Georgia chain gangs. He was a member of the Georgia's Colored Alliance there, but nobody else spoke out. However, the bill would later successfully pass, unfortunately for him, 96 to 8. He was also part of the Temperance Committee. And following that term, he was again defeated for the 2nd time by Darien resident Democrat C.H. Hopkins. And he wrote to the editor of the Darien Timber Gazette, Mr. Crawford did, "Dear sir, the results have been declared in the election after a determined fight. I was defeated. Now I look for the great good to be done in the future for the city of Darien and McIntosh County with great pleasure. I was watching as to the fairness of the election, and I have no complaint to make. I was a Republican before the defeat, and I am a Republican again today. Lecutred Crawford." Only imagine politicians in the world today being willing to admit defeat as easily as he did. He wouldn't be defeated for long. He would reappear one final time as a member to the House in 1900. He would pass in December 12th, 1901, and be remembered with a very nice bill by the Georgia House. It was printed in the Savannah Press, remembering his life and service despite his color and background. And just as we're getting done here, I do want to remember another man from Butler Island. This gentleman is a gentleman of both myth and legend. This is Liverpool Hazzard. He is remembered on his headstone on Butler Island as the last of the Butler Island slaves. He was born enslaved in 1851 to York and Lydia. York, his father, was rumored to have been a mulatto son of a Butler Island overseer. He was an enslaved oarsman. This was a very significant position to have on the Butler Island and other Georgia plantations. Oarsmen were treated a little bit differently than the rest of the enslaved, and they were used for boat races. Specifically in this region, you had James Cooper. Remember our man who killed the bison? You had Pierce Butler there on Butler Island. Thomas King and Thomas Spalding were also in the region. These plantation owners would take their enslaved oarsmen and train them for these races. You would have a canoe, a dugout canoe, 25 to 50 feet in length with 2.5 to 4 feet wide. They're less than 1 inch thick, so it's very, very light ship that is built. They have 12-foot oars mounted in outboard riggers, and you're powered by 5 to 6 oarsmen, enslaved men that are trained to race these boats. Liverpool recalls that the oarsmen would chant or sing shout songs to keep together when rowing. During the races, typically your plantation owner would serve as the coxswain of the boat, back in the back shouting orders to his men. Now, old Liverpool, he specifically remembers that Mr. Butler, old Marster as he called him, old Marster would yell at us for encouragement and if we were doing wrong. He would also, for 3 months leading up to any race, not allow any of his oarsmen to do any work. If you did, you would be locked up. The idea was the oarsmen would just eat and practice and then have our muscles strong. We'd sit in the stern of the boat and he'd keep urging us on, calling us by name if we would slack up. At our best, we could do the mile in 6.25 minutes on the water in those boats. Pretty fast out there on the water. Old Marster loved the races and used to bet $500 on us every time. And when we would win, there was sure some celebrating back on the plantation. Everybody wanted to be on the master's crew. I'd rather have been on the crew than do anything else. I used to roll old Marster everywhere he went. Now you can see in the photographs, Mr. Liverpool Hazzard there, he's got a white flower. He never went anywhere without his white flower. That was due to, as an enslaved man, an enslaved oarsman on Butler Plantation, that white flower let everybody around McIntosh County, Darien, down to Brunswick, that he was allowed to come and go as he pleased. And slave patrollers and anybody else don't harass him. He has permission to do it. Well, even when he became a free man following the war, he continued to serve Pierce Butler and would remain on the island for a few years. And he continued to wear that white flower the rest of his life. He did, in fact, row his master, Pierce Butler, everywhere he went. And the task continued even after his enslavement. And in 1867, it was Liverpool Hazzard who rowed his former master from Butler Island to Darien one final time to seek medical treatment in town after he fell fatally ill due to malaria. He used his knowledge on the river as an oarsman to work in the timber industry. In the 1910 census, at 59 years old Liverpool Hazzard is one of those men running around out there on those booms as a boom hand. Who knows? I'm not that old yet, and I don't think I could do that. 59 years old, working as a boom hand. And by 1920, at 69 years old, he's now a Rafthand drifting timber up and down the Altamaha River. And by 1930s, he's no longer employed on the census. He is listed as a Darien homeowner and moved off of Butler Island. And from the 1930s to the end of his life, he is a local tourist attraction and a major living legend. He had his ox cart and suit, complete with his signature white flower. He will recount tales from his early life on Butler Island, tales of running the river, his accounts from tending Confederate horses during the Civil War, and many other adventures. Postcards like this one were in production even a decade after his death. Now, he is recorded as being over 100 years old in many of the records. They are incorrect. Liverpool Hazzard did not live to be over 100 years old. Like we said, he was officially born in 1851, and he passed away in 1938 at 87 years old.